Good day, students. It's Mr. Sargent here with your recap video for social studies. Now, today we're going to continue learning about our map skills. We're going to be doing a couple of activities. I'm going to show you how to log into your own Flocabulary account. And most of all, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to learn about why maps are so important. So, ladies and gentlemen, sit back and let's learn. Now, yesterday in science, the class took a trip to different places around the building to look for solids, liquids, and gases. Now, we knew which directions to go because, well, we're familiar with the building by now. But if someone wasn't familiar with the building, they would need to know certain directions like left, right, straight, backwards, things like that. It's the same thing when you're reading a map. Now, last week we talked about the compass rose. It's right here. It's right here, in which it tells us directions. Now, I feel pretty confident that we know our directions. We have north, south, east, and west. We talked about it last week. We're going to move on because there's so much more to learn about maps. Now, if you take a look here, this is from Flocabulary, and we're going to talk about that later. But here are some key terms that you really, really need to know. The first word is bird's eye. Now, you may think to yourself, why do we know about birds' eyes? Well, it's not really about their eyes, it's how they see the world. They see the world looking down on the land, don't they? And that's what a map is like. A map gives us a visual representation by looking above it. And we get to see all the other vocab words that are up here in examples. So, for instance, the second word is border. Well, we know what a border is. A border separates things, doesn't it? A border is sort of like a fence. Now, if I'm a bird and we're looking at a bird's eye, the borders that we see are most commonly going to be the difference between land and water. So that could be a border. Can you think of any other borders out there? Well, if you think about the borders between states, the borders between cities, even the borders between different neighborhoods. All of these borders are there to separate things, whether it's land and water, or whether it's city per city, whether it's state per state or country per country. These borders are on a map to show us where one land starts and one land ends. All right. As we continue to go through this list, I'm going to skip all the way down to the bottom because, ladies and gentlemen, we know most of the other ones. And if you don't, please listen to my little lesson on Flocabulary later, and it's definitely going to help you out. But I'm going to skip to the bottom and talk about scale for a second. Now, if you look at the map behind me, it says that New York is there, Washington, D.C. is there. Are they really that close? It says they're only about an inch apart. Well, if you take a look at the scale here, you will see that the maps aren't actual size. I know, shocking, right? That the map isn't the actual distance. We have to use a little math here. So if you look at some of the scales, you'll always see a scale that has certain numbers, that each inch represents a certain number of miles. All right? So if you see the scale at the bottom of this map, you'll notice that each inch or each distance is represented for 500 miles. So really, there's a much bigger distance between New York and Washington, D.C. So when we read a map, it's good to have a ruler with us because it's going to help us understand the distance between the two places we're looking at. And the final word I want to look at is legend. No, not me as a legend, but the legend on a map. Now, whenever we're looking for symbols, whenever we're looking at capitals, whenever we're looking at borders or looking for scales, or sometimes even looking for the compass, we can look to the legend and it's going to tell us all of our symbols. Ladies and gentlemen, it's important to be able to read a legend so you understand a map. Now, to help us understand a map a little bit better, let's go listen to the Flocabulary video that I'm going to assign you, and then I'm going to teach you how to log on to Flocabulary at home. So, ladies and gentlemen, Let's start it.
You know, maps are pretty cool. They can tell us what something looks like, how to get somewhere, and give us information about places and people. You know, a map is kind of like a book. You need to know how to read it, or it doesn't make sense. But it's not that hard. Just get it. Yeah. People ask me, what's a map? A map is a drawing or a photograph that shows us any place from above. It's a bird's eye view that I love. You can map any place, small or huge. Here's a map of the world and here's a map of my room. Political maps have the borders of countries. There's the US, there's Canada, trust me. Maps color countries so they're easy to see. And they have labels where the cities would be. That dot is New York, that star is DC, because our capital is Washington, D.C. How did I know that capitals were stars? I looked down at the legend, it's not far. The legend, sometimes called the key, tells us what the symbols mean. See, it says a dot is a big city. A star is a capital city. Now come with me. There are more symbols that I'm counting. That triangle means there's a mountain. That blue line is a river. There's a river by a mountain. Go figure. Now as you can see, a map is much smaller than the thing it represents. Yeah, holler. Oh, so New York's not really an inch from DC? Nah, it's farther than that. Trust me. What's the actual distance? Check the scale, which shows how big it is for real. That's the real distance, that's the map distance. 200 miles, that's what 1 inch is. But the scale on each map is different, so check the legend when you need assistance. Physical maps show what the land is like, and the color shows us the height. So I can tell from looking at the map that this area is mountains and this is flat. Which way's north? Want me to ask Columbus? Nah. You could look at the compass rose. Yeah, that's how you know which way's north, east, south, west. Let's go. Mappy map, you know what to do with that. Taking trips, here's a tip, you can use a map. Mappy map, and the legend has your back. Here's the key, follow me, now we're using maps. Mappy map, mappy, mappy, mappy map. Taking trips, here's a tip, you can use a map. Mappy map, mappy, mappy, mappy map. Here's the key, follow me, now we're using maps. Yeah. And there are so many different kinds of maps. There are climate and weather maps that show us storms. Some show us temperature. There are road maps that show roads. There are agricultural maps that show us where different plants or animals are raised. There are military maps that show us where battles happened and where armies marched. There are historical maps that show us what people thought the world looked like. There are maps of the moon, maps that show us sports teams. A blueprint is like a map of a building. There are maps of galaxies, maps of every place in my house that I hid a pickle, maps of how to get to my secret stash of Halloween candy from 5 years ago, maps of all the cute dogs in my neighborhood, maps of all the scary dogs in my neighborhood, maps of where to find the best maps, maps of where they filmed the TV show Mutant Ant Power Squad. You know, maps.
Once again, what a great video. And ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't stop there. For today's first activity, what you're going to do is, well, we're gonna have a little Tech Tuesday in which you get to go through the vocabulary lesson. Now, I've gone ahead and assigned the video, the vocabulary cards, and let's quickly go over the vocabulary cards and what you need to do. So let's just pick legend. So if we click on legend, it gives us the definition. That's pretty cool, right? But if you scroll down, it'll say right with this word. So let's click on that. And here, what you need to do is use the word in a sentence. Can you think of a sentence in which we use legend? How about this? I use a legend to understand a map. And we know what goes at the end of every sentence? Punctuation. So if we take a look, now we have our own sentence. So you go through and, cancel that. You go through and you do the vocabulary activity. Now, along with the vocabulary activity, we have the vocab game, which if you haven't tried it yet, my goodness, is it fun, ladies and gentlemen, where you can go through here and practice using those vocabulary words that you learned from the lesson. Then we have a read and respond, which is pretty much just like a regular reading comprehension. We have the quiz, And finally, at the end, we have the Lyric Lab, where you can create your own lyrics. Ladies and gentlemen, I know I have the most talented class out there, so I know you're gonna have fun. But the question may be, how do I log into Flocabulary? Well, let's talk about that for a second. Now, if you're in one of my classes, whether it's first period or in the afternoons, then ladies and gentlemen, you already have your own Flocabulary account. And if we take a look here, when you go to Flocabulary login, you click on the login right there, and this screen will come up. You'll put your username right there. And if you don't have your username, reach out to me and I can send it to you via Class Dojo. But everybody's password is the same, and it's going to be school123. And then you go ahead and click login, and ladies and gentlemen, you are all set. You will see some things when you log on. You'll see where the assignments are, you'll see where the different lessons are. And ladies and gentlemen, definitely explore Flocabulary for even more information. So to end today's video, we have a quick little activity called the town map, where we focus on directions, get our little map skills practicing. And on Thursday, we are going to focus on a treasure map, where we learn about coordinate grids. It's a little bit of math, but I know you don't mind. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I cannot wait to see each and every one of you tomorrow.